We're going to write the equation of this graph. So let's see, if I look at this, I can see that from peak to peak, that would be one full cycle. So the period is 6. All right, and in the equation, we don't want the period, we want b. And since period is equal to 2 pi divided by b, let's see, the period is 6. 2 pi divided by b, but we actually want to solve for that b. So I'm going to multiply both sides by b, and so I would get 6b equals 2 pi. Sorry, my b's and my 6's look the same. And then dividing by that. So I get that b is equal to pi over 3. And notice right here, this will always work where to solve for b, it's just b is equal to 2 pi divided by the period that you can find from your graph. So that's a nice thing just to have in your notes. We're used to it going the other way, where we say that period is equal to 2 pi divided by b, but we can write it the other way as well. B is equal to 2 pi divided by period. Good. Okay, so we have b. Now let's think about if there's been a vertical shift, if there's a new midline, but it looks like coming through here is our midline. So there's no vertical shift, and that means that the amplitude is from the midline up to the peak. So the amplitude I can see from the graph is 1. And I'm going to think about this as a cosine, because cosine starts at a peak. So let's do y equals, amplitude is 1, so there's no coefficient in front of cosine. The b is pi over 3, but there has also been a vertical shift. So here we have, or sorry, not vertical, but a horizontal shift, okay? So that is my phase shift. And that's what I'm going to subtract from x minus a negative 7. So then that can simplify y equals cosine of pi over 3 times x plus 7. And there's a lot of different ways we could have written this equation. We could have thought of it as starting here and being a negative cosine. We could have thought of it as starting here at 1 and going off the graph. So there's multiple ways that you can write these equations. It depends kind of where you're starting, and then that'll impact your equation and whether your cosine has a reflection over the x-axis or not. So we're just looking for a equation, one of the many that would work for this graph. Okay, let's try another one. I'm seeing a graph that could start here at the midline and go down, back up, and then end at the midline. So that is a sine curve that's been reflected across the x-axis. Okay, so let's see. Our amplitude goes from the midline up to the peak. So amplitude is 2.5, but because of that reflection, the a value is going to be negative 2.5. Okay, so let's use sine, negative 2.5 sine. There's been no horizontal shift. Now let's think about our period. Okay, so we go from 0 to 2. That gives us our period. But that isn't the b yet. The b we find using the fact that b is equal to 2 pi divided by the period. Okay, so it is pi. So it would be pi times x.